If you want to clear Ulduar week 1, you absolutely need to be prepared. And there's actually quite a few things you can do right now to make sure you're as ready as possible to enter into this raid and actually clear it instead of just spending too much time getting destroyed by one of the hard modes or some of the bosses. And so today I'm going to give you my top 10 things you can utilize or do to prepare for Ulduar. But before we dive in, I do want to say a lot of these assets or a lot of these things have been compiled by amazing creators, and they usually have on there a way for you to show some support. So make sure that you're supporting the creators that actually have put a ton of effort into helping everyone else get ready for this raid. From there, let's dive right in. The first thing you're going to want to do is to make sure that you're prepared for the raid in a way that your guild can actually understand. And the best way to do that is have your assignment sheets actually kind of written out, and make sure that you have in your guild Discord kind of screenshots of what everybody's assignments are. Now in the background, this is Cosmophile's Phase 2 spreadsheet. And what you can see is that we have slots for the entire roster where you can actually roster your entire raid and then decide what assignments they're going to do for every single encounter. There's a lot of things that can be very important, so if you want to focus on having everyone know all of their roles for every fight in this raid, definitely make sure you grab something like this guide. And then just take a screenshot of after you've written all of the assignments into the sheet and just post that in your guild's Discord so people can look at things specifically for that one boss. One of the most important ones will obviously be Yogg-Saron. So having everyone's portal assignments already hashed out in the sheet, and then just having them look at a screenshot and say, oh, I'm jumping into the portal directly in front of the boss, will massively save so many headaches and will make this fight a lot easier. Now the sheet has a lot more than just assignments. You can actually go to the tabs and see every single boss encounter to see what you should kind of understand the fight, what the room looks like. You can see the assignments for that specific encounter and all of the actual mechanics from the boss. So if you try to explain something, you can actually read out exactly what it does, like the Rune of Power giving you guys 50% extra damage whenever you're standing in it. So make sure your guild is utilizing something like this. And even if your guild isn't, make sure to take a look at it yourself. It'll be massively helpful. And I would just highly suggest you grab this assignment sheet. The next thing you're going to want to do is have your full UI ready and up to date. That means updating all of your add-ons on launch day of the new patch. Now there is one caveat with that, and that is that sometimes Elv UI can be a little bit buggy. If you do get any console or screen errors ever, just make sure you're running this one script on the screen, and you'll no longer get any of those annoying error messages while you're playing. As for UI, the most important things I would say are updating your bigwids or deadly boss mods, but also wouldn't it be nice just to have a phenomenal weak aura pack that'll tell you everything to do, every single mechanic you need to watch out for, and have bars or sliders saying when a new mechanic is about to happen even more clearly than DBM or bigwigs? Well, that's exactly what the Thames weak aura pack is. The Thames Ulduar pack, again, this will be linked in the description, but Thames is always my go-to for every single new release, where I use these weak auras that will tell you exactly what's happening. Bars like saying move into a black hole for Algalon, or that the Big Bang is going to go out, then you want to see those happening and know that you need to either move or get into some sort of mechanic. It'll also track all of the interrupts for fights like General Vesex. It'll pretty much give you a breakdown of every single mechanic in the raid that you need to be aware of. And it's actually not too bloated, so you won't have to worry too much, although it is a huge weak aura pack because there is a ridiculous amount of things to watch out for in this raid. Ulduar comes with a ton of new loot, and because of that, you want to know exactly what items you're going to be looking out for in your loot prio, or also what items are going to be your full bis. Now, I've released a few guides that are loot prio guides as well as alternative bis lists for the classes I really like, but also Wowhead has released their bis list for all of the classes. And one thing that most people don't know is if you scroll down on Wowhead, you can have alternative options for every single piece. So if you were a warlock and you didn't want to get every single item off of hard mode Yogg-Saron or Algalon, you can just scroll down and see where it's actually easy to get all of the alternatives. Once you have all of these upgrades within the raid itself, you're going to want to be able to use them right away. And to be able to do that, you're going to need to make sure you have Enchants and Gems on you at all times. So equipping an item and enchanting it right on the spot to use it for the next boss is going to be a huge power boost for your character. Just make sure you have an extra enchant for all of your slots in the raid, as well as make sure you have gems for pretty much anything that could be an upgrade as well. Speaking of things that go in your inventory, let's not forget about the consumables you're going to be needing. If you are a hardcore guild, or if you're on a more regular, let's call it dad guild, you're still going to want to bring things at least like flasks. Now, potions can be extremely useful as well. I plan on bringing a ton. If you are a warlock, you probably know about the flame cap nerf that should be coming out live, so don't stock up on those. But there's a few other things you can actually bring that'll be very useful. Some of the fights could actually use a bit of resistance gear. That means actually crafting maybe some resistance gear from last expansion, or bringing things like the resistance flask. This can be a huge help to your raid if you're trying to kill that hard mode towards the end of this raid. I've seen guilds go in there without the flask and get destroyed, and guilds go in there with this resistance flask on certain encounters and absolutely be able to clear it. So look into things like this. You can also use this cheeky belt enchant to stun some mechanical mobs. Think XT's room, or maybe Mimiron and Mimiron's room, or leading up to there. There's a lot of weird interactions where you're fighting against mechanical enemies, and you can actually rotate people using this engineering belt enchant to greatly reduce the damage you take. So make sure you have pretty much every little advantage you can within consumables range before you enter the raid. If your guild only has a limited amount of time to go into this raid this week, especially because it releases on Thursday, you're gonna wanna know how to optimize that as best as possible. And one thing that can be huge for it is actually choosing your raid plan, planning out which hard modes you're gonna deal with, as well as which bosses you're gonna focus on and allow yourselves to spend a little bit more time on. If you're confused at all about which bosses are harder in a hard mode situation and which ones are more of a time sink, I have an entire breakdown of all of the hard modes with my boys Crix, Rugs, Zyrene, all on YouTube here, and I'll have a link to that in the description as well, so you can know which bosses are a lot more of a time sink than they're actually worth. In particular, I wouldn't focus on something like Hodir week 1 if your guild hasn't spent a lot of time doing that and you don't plan on going for Realm First achievement. But if you have planned that all out yourselves, then you don't need to worry about this. And the first hard mode I think everyone should try to get down if you have the opportunity is absolutely gonna be Thorim. That is the easiest one, and I will just tell you right now. You're also gonna wanna know what raid composition you're gonna run with, so plan this all out beforehand. Make sure you have all of your buffs. I did a speedrun recently where we had one of the fastest runs in the world, but we didn't even have our melee haste buff because we forgot to have our Frost DK at the time. So make sure you have all of your buffs planned out. Make sure your groups are all known. I'm sure your guild already has kind of broken down who's running on your launch day raids or the raids throughout the weekends. So you probably know that, but just have everything organized. Come up with a solid actual raid composition that will help you clear every single encounter. So downing all of the bosses is all that matters this week, and getting all of the loot. If you need a guide for this, I do also have a YouTube video fully breaking down what an extremely solid composition is that will help you clear the entire raid. You can kind of just look at most of it in the background right now, but there's a lot more explanation in that video if you need it. This next tip sounds simple, but it's actually a very big one. Gear your tanks first. Absolutely funnel gear to your tanks because it'll make the fights massively easier. You will clear this raid significantly easier if your tanks have new Ulduar gear. The eye level boosts with the gear in this raid make everyone so much stronger, and the biggest fear is usually tank deaths. That's why a lot of people will be running Protection Paladins, because they literally have a cheat death. If they die, they're gonna live. But if you actually gear your tanks out very well, you won't have to worry about relying on any of those mechanics. It just gives you a lot more leeway and makes the fights a lot easier to deal with. Now, if you want to be able to clear the raid cleanly and you have a little bit of extra time, or if your raid's not going right on reset, I would suggest going in there as many times as you can with your different characters into the actual 10-mans. Clearing the 10-mans can boost your eye level massively. All of the hard modes in 10-mans will also be significantly easier than the 25-man iterations, and you'll actually be able to understand all of the mechanics if you actually see them yourself going into the 10-mans and bringing that loot over into the 25-mans. You're gonna be way stronger, and you're gonna be able to clear the bosses at such a faster and way easier rate. And lastly, speaking of actually seeing the encounters themselves, you're gonna wanna watch some guides, and I would massively suggest my boy Jordy's Ulduar guides. He has breakdowns of every single hard mode for you all, and it's very, very clear, very concise. You've probably seen them already, but if you haven't, make sure you send them to your guild. There's a lot lot of mechanics for every single encounter, and just watching one short video can make it significantly easier. It'll explain everything you need to do. The raid is a massive step up from the difficulty levels of anything we've seen before. This includes actually the fights like Sunwell Plateau. Everything like that is so much easier than what we're dealing with, especially for the hard modes here in Ulduar. So being prepared and watching a guide will make things infinitely easier for your entire raid. And it's just so simple to sit back and just kind of like maybe have a viewing party or watch one a day this week to get ready to go into this raid and clear the entire thing. If you are following all of these tips, then you will significantly increase your chances. I would actually wager you for sure will clear every single boss encounter you want to. Outside of Algalon, that's a whole nother level in itself, but you should be able to go in and get everything done smoothly so that your raid could even clear it quickly and go into 10-mans, or clear 10-mans and go into this, and then also start your splits or whatever else you're gonna do. Anyways, guys, if you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, let me know if there's other tips you might have for people in the comments. And if you want to show support to my channel, you can not only watch me live on Twitch, which is in the description, but you can join the actual channel memberships to have your name scrolling on the video. Okay, thanks guys. I appreciate you all and have a good one. I'll see you all on the next one.